I want to get into the woke stuff here, because this is where it also takes this weird turn where like now suddenly Riddler's been posting on some kind of online forum, and there are weird reactionaries who have been, I don't know, who've been giving him advice on explosives and firearms, and they're like a weird Riddler militia that shows up at the end, and so I don't know if that's meant to be some kind of right wing like gun nut militia thing, or like I don't know. I don't know exactly what it's meant to be, but it comes out of nowhere, and it also just doesn't make a lot of sense, because like if you think about, well, it's tough with a movie like Batman, because I want to bring a lot of Batman lore into the conversation. I want to try to avoid doing that as much as I can. But like, if you think about the Riddler's character, like this is a guy who is, 10 times smarter than the vast majority of people he ever interacts with. The idea that he'd be posting to an online forum and listening to what a bunch of yokels have to say is like, that strikes me as not a very Riddler thing to do, first of all. But secondly, it just feels like it gets us into the like, oh, internet culture and bad gun nuts. And I don't know. It just had a little bit of that vibe to it, but it just feels so out of place. And then in the end, all it really serves to do is give Batman like another, 20 guys to mow down at the end. Right? Like it doesn't really serve any other purpose other than just to be another opportunity for Batman to just beat up a bunch of people.
Yeah.
That was a missed opportunity in my opinion. I think if you're going to have a character like Batman and the kinds of villains that Batman goes up against set in the modern era, set in 2022.
Yeah.
Of course he's live streaming on whatever platform on the dark web. Of course he is. And of course there's all of these nut jobs who are like, oh yeah, go for it, man. Yeah. And here, this is a tip that I'm going to give you. Like that felt very authentic. And there was an opportunity to sort of demonstrate the danger of that kind of cult of personality and siloing off fringy people from the rest of society, because we can't talk about that anymore. Like that could have been like a really interesting aspect to this.
But again, that also gets thrown at you. It gets thrown at you so last minute as well, right?
Yeah, it's just they brought it in so late. It's not a perfect movie. I'm not going to say that it is. I love it regardless, but like there were some missed opportunities here. And I think that is a big one. And it could have been really cool and interesting, but they just kind of missed on it.
I think another one of these things, and this kind of continuing on this kind of like weird woke theme, is like there's a couple moments. This is what I don't understand about some of this stuff. Is like the movie is actually marred by a couple of these moments that otherwise wouldn't really be a big deal. And so Zoe Kravitz is fantastic as Catwoman pretty much the entire time. Her character makes a ton of sense, both in terms of her overarching sort of mission of stealing money from Carmine Falcone, which she has a very good reason to do, and that all makes sense. She has an even more personal motive for being involved in most of this, in that one of her friends and coworkers was kidnapped and murdered. And so she wants to find, at first she wants to find her friend, and then she wants to find her friend's killer, basically. And so that all makes sense why she's in all of this. She's great in all of the cat burglary kind of stuff. She's great in all of the kind of espionage-y kind of stuff and all of the stuff in the nightclub. And she's really good in all of that stuff. And there's a couple moments where she's like, oh, white privilege. And you're like, why? Like, what does that have to do with? She's like talking to Batman about how he has white privilege for some reason. And it's like, you're talking to a guy dressed like a bat. And by the way, he does kind of have a decent amount of privilege, but he's also pretty messed up as a character. Like he's not a sane, normal human being. Like you might start with some sense of like, this is somebody who grew up in a weird way. Like he was not.
Now she wasn't
She wasn't
calling
talking
him.
about Batman.
No,
was,
I know, but it's
like,
just the whole thing is just like kind of strange to me because it just didn't feel very
Well, yeah,
connected
for her,
to anything else.
yeah, it was. I knew. I mean, right when she said, it, I was like, oh yeah, people are gonna. The internet's gonna not
Yeah.
like this. But for me, it fits her character, and what she was commenting about was that nobody cared about her mother
Yeah.
because she was a black woman, but they care about these corrupt politicians who happen to be white. But also, she is. I mean,
she's also
course she
very
said that.
young. She's
Of course she said
very
that.
young.
No, I know. Of
And
course she said that.
it definitely makes sense for her character. I didn't care for it, but
I don't.
I
I
also
agree. Well, I sort of agree. I mean, I don't think it totally makes sense for her character in this context because it feels shoehorned in. It feels like something that's like a little bit extra.
When is
that
it not?
really didn't quite. Well, I know it always feels that way. But that's sort of the problem for me is like it. You can see the meddling, and I don't know if it was the way that it was initially written or if it was Matt Reeves or if it was the studio or whatever, but it just there's this sense that there was just something there that was like a perfectly flowing scene, and then somebody was like, yeah, now make a crack about CEOs and rich, and you're like, okay, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
That scene didn't really have to do with that. And also it's just strange. Like, for the most part, Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman is actually really kind of heroic in a lot of ways. I mean, she's neutral for the most part, but like to the extent that she takes action, she's taking action against criminals and mob bosses and corrupt politicians, and she's trying to save the life of her friend and then avenge the life of her friend. She doesn't really do anything. Like, there are a lot of versions of Catwoman where she is a jewel thief who is just predominantly a thief, and she goes around stealing stuff just because it's fun and she can, and she's good at it, you know. I don't get the sense with this. Like, she has a mission that she's trying to accomplish that, you know, like, she's targeting the right people. She's not going off, at least in the beginning of the movie, the way that she's introduced, she's not going after random people. She's not just going to burglarize like somebody's house just because. She's going after Carmine Falcone specifically, right? For specific reasons. So that all seems fine to me. And then suddenly she's just like, yeah, why don't we just go steal some stuff from some jerk CEO, whatever. Like, yeah, it's probably not a Batman move, but you know.
Because they were going to go steal from the Penguin, right?
Yeah, but again, Penguin, crime boss, right?
Well, yes, but Batman's point was he's not involved in this. Why do we care? And that's kind of this kind of leads me to, we've talked about this with Reachers, the Reacher show, about a character actually being a true hero, and this Batman is a true hero. At every point, he's doing things for heroic reasons, and when he's offered the chance to, you know, kill people, because that's Batman, so he doesn't shoot people, or have even Catwoman shoot people, he stops her from doing it. He stops himself from doing it. He holds himself back because of that ideal he's trying to uphold.